We've been through dire times in these months of anguish war. And during that time, I can say that Israel has had no better friend than Senator John Fetterman.
All right, that clip was from last June when Senator John Fetterman visited Israel. But according to a new report, Fetterman's own employees are sick and tired of the Pennsylvania senator treating a foreign country as if it is his top priority. In fact, 2 of his staffers have just resigned because of it. Cenk, what do you think? Was this a long time coming?
Yeah, so I'm gonna explain the different buckets of Democrats in how they're dealing with Trump. There's the Fetterman bucket, there's the Bernie bucket, and then there's the everyone else bucket. So we'll get to that in a second, but first let's find out more what happened in Fetterman's office.
Can't wait to hear about those buckets. Okay, well, regarding the resignations, one former Fetterman staffer told The Hill, "I don't find this as a surprise. I think the staff is probably frustrated that working in the Fetterman office means you're just working on Israel all the time." Last spring, 3 staffers left the Fetterman team, and that was shortly after Fetterman raised eyebrows by declaring he is not a progressive. I imagine that's not what those staffers had signed on for, considering the way that Fetterman ran his campaign while he was running for office. Fetterman said, "I just think I'm a Democrat that is very committed to choice and other things. But with Israel, I'm going to be on the right side of that. And immigration is something near and dear to me, and I think we do have to effectively address it as well." Fetterman's communications director also resigned last month, so that makes 6 resignations in total. Meanwhile, Fetterman recently stated that he is supportive of US troops being deployed to Gaza as part of Trump's plan to own the territory. Asked if he wanted to see US troops on the ground, Fetterman replied, "I don't know what the role of US forces is, but they're obviously part of it, and I fully support." It's not the most informed take in the world, especially not coming from a senator. And on Trump's plan overall, Fetterman stated, "It's a provocative part of the conversation, but it's part of the conversation, and that's where we are. The Palestinians have refused, or they've been unwilling to deliver a government that provided security and economic development for themselves. They allowed 10/7 to occur, and now Gaza has to be rebuilt." So we're hearing lots of support for Trump and Trump's agenda, but this is a thing that we've been seeing more of lately than any other time that I personally can remember. We're seeing members of Congress bait and switch their constituents, running on whichever platform they think will win in their districts. Whatever they think is going to get them elected, they'll say it, they'll do it. And then once they're in office, they just do whatever they want to do. In our democracy, elections are the most effective way that everyday citizens get to have a say in the running of their government. But once those officials are elected, there's significantly less that constituents are able to do to hold their elected officials accountable, apart from maybe threatening them with physical violence, which we will get to later on in the show, or just not voting for them again. Cenk, I know we've been seeing this pattern emerge with Fetterman for a while now. What do you think his political future holds?
So for Fetterman, there's 2 different issues. Obviously, they're a little bit related. One is Israel, the other is the right wing turn that he's taking, because you could be 100% in favor of Israel. If I wouldn't recommend it, it's a terrible position in my opinion these days. And oh yeah, they haven't killed enough Palestinians, whatever, right? But still hold all other Democratic positions or other left-wing positions. That's not that uncommon in Congress, right? So, but he's not just doing that. He's also doing the right-wing turn. So I'll get back to that in a sec. So when you talk about the right turn, like, are they working with Trump or do they just have a strategy? Like, what are the different Democrats up to in regards to Donald Trump? I think that there are 3 different buckets. There's a Hakeem Jeffries bucket, and I pick him as the standard bearer for that, because not just because he's the minority leader in the House for the Democrats, but also because he gave this press conference where he basically said, "Oh, we don't hold any levers of power. I don't know what to do. There's nothing I could do." Okay, so there's the nothing I can do, so I'll just sit here like a lump on a log and get my ass handed to me bucket. And that's where unfortunately like 90% of the Democrats are. So then there's the Bernie Sanders bucket that says, hey, when you say you want to cut the Pentagon, I want to cut the Pentagon. Bernie was very clear about that. And several other things, about half a dozen things. He's like, if you mean it, I'm here for it. I've been here for it for 40 or 50 years. So that's the Bernie bucket. I love that bucket, I'm in that bucket. Ro Khanna's in that bucket. So people who say, if you're coming towards us, We will take yes for an answer. If you want us to go to your wacko right-wing world and cut taxes for the rich and corporations, no, we'll fight you tooth and nail. I've seen Bernie be conciliatory where it makes sense because again, they're agreeing with him. And I've seen him rip Trump's face off. Perfect, that's exactly how you should fight Trump. Okay, now you're gonna oppose Trump on 90% of things if you do that, and that's how it should be, okay. Then there's the Fetterman bucket. The Fetterman bucket is not just he's pro-Israel. I mean, as Yaz pointed out there, he's talking about American boots on the ground. MAGA's against that. MAGA got Trump to back off that position. So he's more right-wing than MAGA? And on things that where MAGA's coming towards us, anti-war, Fetterman's saying, no, don't. Be more pro-war and make Americans fight those wars. Okay, but that's, again, it's related to Israel. Look, my real opinion on him, on Israel, there's the theory that they have tapes on people. I have no idea if that theory is true, but if that theory is true, Fetterman's on that list. Okay, so I mean, this is unnatural. This is weird. It's over the top weird. Okay, but on other issues, he voted to confirm Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi, he's the only Democrat who voted to confirm Pam. Pam Bondi is mainly known for being a crook. She's the one that's, when she was Attorney General in Florida, was going to investigate Trump University. Trump sent her a $25,000 check. She's like, we're not moving forward with that case. And I give you that as one example, but she's done that like half a dozen times in a prominent way. She like, yeah, I'll do this, I'll prosecute you. Donor sends her a check. And she goes, no, we're not doing that prosecution anymore. She's like the definition of corruption. And Fetterman's like, I'm here for it. So I could go on. And then that, him saying he's not a progressive. You wanna make distinctions. Hey, you know what? I'm actually more accurately populist or a leftist or whatever you wanna call it, right? Or center left. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. If you just say, not a progressive, I'm not interested in it. After you ran as king progressive. Nah, that's the sellout bucket. So, and there are a couple others in there, but it's Fetterman's the king of that bucket. So that's my analysis on him. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that you say it well, and I'd suggest maybe he ran as a populist, but we could discuss whether he progressed or a populist. He certainly all of a sudden distanced himself from progressive values that clearly propelled him into office. I'm also struck by how easy it is as a politician, certainly he knows this, to not really answer the question, and yet he didn't do any of that. Instead, he takes these extreme positions, as Cenk has just mentioned, and as you did too, as you talk about the boots on the ground. I mean, you guys are talking about a position that, as is rightly noted here, hasn't been supported by virtually anyone. I mean, everyone looked at Trump's statements on Gaza, and I mean, literally everyone, even in his own administration, and thought, this isn't going to happen. This is something we have to just sort of hope evaporates in the fullness of time type thing. But the reality is there are ways to play it down the middle. You can talk about, well, there's a horrible loss of life here. I certainly hope we get to some kind of understanding that accounts for all of the different interests of the people of the Middle East. It's a war-ravaged region, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it a million times. But he didn't do that, and it's disturbing, and it's weird. And I don't believe that they're recordings, but maybe they're, whatever. It's a bizarre pivot that Fetterman has made. And this Democrat who was being talked about in ways that involved perhaps even vaulting him to higher office, as this is the populist, everyman kind of guy who could be a rallying point for the Democratic Party to actually retain power and regain power in the executive branch. All of a sudden, he looks to be a real problem. He's kind of a Joe Manchin type right now. So I don't understand why he couldn't play the politics of it down the middle. There's something wrong, I would suggest, on some level with Fetterman right now.
Yeah, I think even with Manchin, and we saw it with Kirsten Sinema, they're not really going to be in office for very much longer. So I'm curious to see whether or not Fetterman has any kind of staying power in the Senate after he ran on one platform. People voted for that platform, and then he flipped. So it's hard to imagine those same people voting for a completely different opposite platform now. Also, since he's been in the Senate, he hasn't really been super effective, apart from the fact that, on the Republican side, one of his ex-staffers said that he's more of a useful idiot now for the right, because now they can get Fetterman's support on things, and then they can claim that things are bipartisan. Look, we're bipartisan. Look, we're working with the other side, even though that's not really the case because it's just John Fetterman. So, and also the fact that he seems more concerned about what's going on in Israel than he does seem concerned with his own constituents. I can't imagine that's going to go over well for him in the upcoming election if he chooses to run again, even.
Yeah, last super quick point. To Mark's point, even some of the neocons, when Trump said American boots on the ground in Gaza and America owns Gaza, even the neocons were like, really? Like, that sounds like a bad plan. That sounds ridiculous. And Fetterman's like, I'll be your Huckleberry. I'll sign on to it. I mean, when you've out neocon the neocons, you're in the wrong part of town. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.